Good afternoon. Interstate traffic a little bit heavier than it was 15-20 minutes ago. Here on 24, trying to get past Shelby. Watch for a lot of radar pushing out through the Mount Juliet area into parts of Wilson County as traffic still cranking up pretty good up through Madison right now with a steady to heavy flow of traffic. Northbound 65 here at OHB. Stein Dental Care in Nashville is who I use, and so should you. If you're looking for a new dentist this year, these are your guys. Google Stein Dental Care Nashville. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Local farmers, local meats, vegetables, and other produce at the Winter Spring Rutherford County Farmers Market.
Bundle up and make your way every Friday at Lane Agri Park.
Rutherford weather.
Cloudy skies tonight with a low temperature of 28 degrees and northwest winds at 10 to 20. Saturday, sunshine with a high temperature of 39 degrees. I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the WGNS Rutherford Weather Center. Right now, it's 58.
We do it your way at Sir Pizza.
Murfreesboro's favorite pizza is now hiring at all 3 locations. That's right. Join the Sir Pizza team. Just stop on in and ask for a manager.
We're the Good Neighbor Network. FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro. FM 100.5 Smyrna. Audio and video streaming at WGNSradio.com.
This is the Blue Raider Podcast on WGNS, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. It's your all-access pass to everything Middle Tennessee sports. Game recaps, player spotlights, and the latest from the heart of Blue Raider Nation. Now, here's your host, Jake Bolden.
Welcome back to the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Got a jam-packed episode for you today. Men's and women's basketball on the road this week, or the women are on the road this week. The men wrapped up their home schedule with a loss against FIU. We'll be recapping both of those games as well as looking ahead to the matchups this Saturday. Softball season started today, dropping both of their games. We'll dig into that a little bit, and baseball season is a week away if we have the time at the end. By all means, we're going to be digging into some baseball and Jerry Meyer's team this year. But before we get into today's episode, I got to thank our presenting sponsor, Gold's Gym of Tennessee. They have a new month-to-month pricing that's only available online at goldsgym.com with no additional fees. The gold membership is just $25 bi-weekly with a $40 enrollment, or you can upgrade to the family plan for you and a significant other at $45 bi-weekly with only a $20 enrollment. That membership gives you access to all 16 Gold's Gyms across Tennessee, along with group exercise classes and childcare, all included, again, with no hidden extra costs. So visit Gold's Gym in Tennessee online at goldsgym.com to learn more and find a location near you. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you're not already following us on our social media outlets at Blue Raider Pod on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and of course, we're live streaming on YouTube as well. So subscribe so you don't miss one of our uploads, as well as our weekend live press conferences that are coming to you there on all of those same outlets as well. So stay tuned in there. And if you want to call into today's episode, voice your opinion. We'll be having plenty of opportunity to do it, talking plenty of hoops today. But if you want to call in, that number is 615-893-1450, and our producer here will gladly take your phone calls. Getting into it today, Lady Raiders, they had their first of their weekend road trip, a weird one to say the least, because the way Conference USA works this year, the travel partners are typically, geographically they make sense, but this year with the additions of Delaware and Missouri State, they have made things a little weird with this particular swing, because now it's Missouri State and FIU, so you have the biggest trip of the year. You go up to Springfield for game 1, and now they're going down to Miami tomorrow. Definitely is unique for a lot of reasons. Obviously, I just spoke on that, but the two teams that you travel with are particularly good teams. FIU not historically very good, but the last couple of years under Jessica Burks-Wiley, who won, as we all notoriously won Conference USA Coach of the Year 2 years ago, has coached up a relatively good team. She's got 2 good guards or forwards, kind of a flex player, if you will. We'll really dive into that. But the biggest task, and we knew this all along, was Missouri State, another rich women's basketball program, very similar to what the Lady Raiders and Coach Insel have built here in Murfreesboro. Really exciting because this team in particular and program really builds up what Conference USA has become. They maybe have not lived up to that expectation this year, but as we learned last night, they are still a very good basketball team and should be handled quite as such. And when you preview that game, you knew you had to stop Becca Meyer, the leading scorer in Conference USA. She's a threat at all given times, and that was evident when she scored 25 points in Missouri State's 60-54 win, going 4 of 5 from 3. And unfortunately, the scouting report against Missouri State is just find a way to limit her, because they're 6-1 in games where she scores at least 15 points in Conference USA, that is. And when she doesn't score 15 points, they're 0-2. Again, it's very rare when that happens, but clearly that is a recipe for success against the Bears. But last night, outside of her performance, you held the rest of the team to 32% field goal shooting and only 9% one-made three from deep. So you did a really good job there, but the other glaring detail that came up to bite them at the end was they allowed 9 second-chance points on 11 offensive rebounds. They lost the game by 6. It certainly got away from them there in the second half, and they were able to cut into that deficit in the fourth, but it grew. I believe that their largest lead was 11 there late into the third quarter. But you gave up 9 second-chance points when you yourself, MTSU, had 0 and only 2 offensive rebounds, an area that MTSU is not necessarily bad at, but as of late, the rebounding hasn't been fantastic. Missouri State is a great rebounding team. Obviously, getting 11 O boards and 9 extra points on those extra possessions proved pivotal in that one. But another area that I was really impressed with is the turnover battle, something that has been an eyesore for a lot of us watching early in the non-conference slate. They've really cleaned that up here in Conference USA play. When you talk about just conference games alone, they're actually the second best team in turnovers, and that's the third straight game now where they've been under 12. Leading into conference play, they were around 18 per game, and since conference play started, they are under 15 per game. So that is trending in the right direction. And again, going on the road, those are kind of the intangibles that a young team can control. And so winning the turnover battle last night, 13-10, albeit you still lost, this team is still trending in the right direction. Missouri State, an exceptionally well-coached team, definitely one that if you don't get the one spot, which now it's definitely more difficult now that you have 3 losses on your conference record versus Louisiana Tech only having 1, and Louisiana Tech has a relatively easy remaining schedule to everyone else. Luckily for MTSU, though, you have an opportunity against Missouri State and FIU later in the year. Those are the 2 teams, in my opinion, that would be vying for that number 2 spot. Sam Houston has looked beatable at times, as they did this last week, and so now you're in a battle for second place with Sam Houston, but unfortunately you don't get a second matchup with them, so you've won the head-to-head there. So can you get Missouri State back when they return to Murphy Center at the end of the year? That is the last conference series of the year. And then, of course, winning on Saturday. Winning on Saturday could do lifting a lot of weight for how things could go down the stretch, because you obviously want to be in the 1 or 2 spot when it comes to the conference tournament. You get the extra day of rest. That's always valuable. But more importantly, in my opinion, you're going to be on the favorable side of the bracket, avoiding Louisiana Tech, who hasn't been the best matchup for you. But you would get an opportunity to play Missouri State again. And I do think that at times this team has shown that they can guard star players, and that's where it comes into Beckmeyer. If you're able to guard her well, I think this team has great success. And even to go into more of the details about this game in particular, Blair didn't shoot the ball particularly well. Savannah Davis went 0 from deep as well. So some uncharacteristic things happened in that game, and you were still right there. So I think if you give Savannah Davis another opportunity to guard Beckmeyer, again, neutral floors, a lot of things can happen. So I like this team's chances against Missouri State. I thought last night was promising. They didn't come out to the slow start that they have in games past. I think that this team has a lot of promise, and we're starting to see a lot of that. But when we talked to Coach Insel after the WKU game last weekend, he did say that this is a very big weekend. Obviously, the travel was something I touched on at the top of this episode, but these are 2 really good teams, and Missouri State was one. FIU, again, they're dangerous for a lot of reasons, and we'll getting into that game tomorrow. It's at noon Central Time on ESPN Plus. They're down in Miami. This FIU team going into conference play, they dropped the first 2 games to Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State, and that's what made me believe that maybe this FIU team wasn't as good as maybe we initially had thought with the additions of Rahima Collins, someone we'll talk about here in a little bit. But since that 0-2 start, they've won 6 of their last 8. They're technically playing for 4th place this weekend, although it's irrelevant to where things end up in the final season. But again, putting yourself in good position with wins is always helpful. Where it sits right now, Sam Houston has that tiebreak with the 1 win over Louisiana Tech. Missouri State obviously has the tiebreak over you with the head-to-head right now. So going up against FIU, if you win, you're tied, quote-unquote, for 2nd place. But via tiebreaks, you're technically in 4th place. But again, that's completely irrelevant to what's going to happen when March rolls around. But when we're scouting this FIU team, they are the 2nd best scoring offense in all of Conference USA at 73.6 points per game. And how they do it is they do it at the free throw line. They're the number 1 team in all of women's college basketball in free throw attempts per game, 26 free throw attempts per game. However, and 2 of their losses this year, and I say that this is a big part of the scouting, is the games that they've lost, they get to the line 12 and 14 times, under half of their free throw attempts per game. The other flip side of this about the free throw line is they do not foul. They're actually in the bottom 5 in all of college basketball in fouls per game. And I know that's not a direct stat-to-stat comparison, but if you're not fouling, the opposition's not getting to the free throw line. So it's about winning the free throw line battle. If it were to be that simple, there's obviously a lot more nuance to this game. But FIU getting 26 free throw attempts and shooting it particularly well from the free throw line, that's scoring opportunities when the clock stops. And a team that scores almost 75 points per game, if you get 25 attempts per game, those numbers are going to add up real quickly. So when you're guarding this team, they have a lot of talent with Paris Atkins and Rahima Collins. They're physical players. They will get downhill. They'll get to the line, and again, that's where they do their damage. So I pay a lot of close attention to how these ladies handle that aggressive nature that FIU likes to play with. But secondly, they're not going to be aggressive on the defensive end. They almost, I would say, they're bottom 3 in Conference USA when it comes to defense because of how passive they are. They have players that need to be offensive players, and they don't need to be on the bench with foul trouble. So inversely, you got to capitalize on some of that, I guess, lackadaisical or relaxed defense is probably a better word for how they play, because they don't defend the inside very well. As far as the front court goes, they don't have a lot of size. Collins is their biggest player at 6'2". She doesn't play the center position. She's more of a power forward, small forward, if that's still a term that we use today. But she certainly is an athlete all her own. She's local talent. For those that don't know, Rahima Collins went to Webb out in Bell Buckle. She out of high school, she was offered MTSU, of course, and then she signed with Ole Miss. And then over this last season in the transfer portal, she ended up in Miami. Actually, a target who I thought may look at coming home to MTSU, given obviously her roots down in Bedford County. But I would, to be honest with you, there's a log jam at her particular position. Obviously, at 6'2", she would be the biggest contributing player outside of Nicole on this team and Stacy Kabernick. But I thought that she might be someone that comes here, and for good reason, because she has shined down in Miami for Coach Burks Wiley. She's averaging over 18 points per game on 47% shooting, but she's strictly an inside threat. Not that she can't shoot the 3 ball. She's only made 5 threes this year, but she's only attempted, I think it's 17. And then she also adds 10.1 rebounds per game. So she is averaging a double-double, and she actually has 11 this year. And I believe the count on Blair Bogus is 9. So just to kind of give you some understanding of how good Rahima Collins is. But back to that game plan, she is the highest free throw rate player on that team. She gets to the free throw line over 8 times per game. She's, like I said, at 6'2". She is very aggressive. She is going to beat on whoever is guarding her down low, and she's going to force you to foul her, and she's going to do a pretty good job of it. She's obviously a great finisher at the rim. I mean, eight free throws per game and still getting 18 points per game. So obviously she can still score the basketball. She's not totally reliant on officiating. Then the other guard that the FIU Panthers have is Paris Atkins. She's over 17 points per game, shooting it at 38% from deep. She is definitely more of a deep threat than what we saw with Raheem, or what we will see with Rahima Collins. But just like Collins, Atkins has over 5 free throw attempts per game. Someone that, again, you have to keep your eye on at all times because they have 2 scoring options. And then Gracia Ferrer-Leal, she's a 5'6" point guard. She's tied for the second most assists in Conference USA. So not the scoring threat that Collins and Atkins are, but she certainly has the vision relative to those two that she can facilitate, find the open man, and get scoring going. So how well can you defend her, disrupt their rhythm? Obviously, trying to keep the ball out of Collins is going to be almost impossible just given her size and her athleticism, but obviously making her shots tough without fouling. And someone that will more than likely be guarding her a lot is going to be Macy Pfeiffer, and it is not great that she fouled out last night, but she's going to be tasked with guarding, again, someone who plays her true forward position that she's going to be tasked with having to guard, and a lot's going to be hanging in the balance on how well she's able to guard Collins tomorrow afternoon. But back to Ferrer-Leal, the point guard, something to keep an eye on her. A lot of turnovers, a lot, and I mean 94 turnovers in just 21 games. And again, to give you perspective, MTSU's leader in turnovers is 64 in 22 games. So she is 33% high, 133% higher than that of the Lady Raiders' leading turnover player. So she will find the open man, but she's very liable for turning the ball over quite a bit. So this game, again, a lot hanging in the balance in terms of head-to-head and all those kind of things, but nonetheless, I think that this team is up for the task in this matchup in particular. They're weird. Not many teams in this conference have that particular style of play with 2 guards that shoot the ball well down low. Not much of a deep threat relative to other teams in this conference. They're pretty middling across the board in all those categories. So it really has a lot to do with how well I think this team is able to score the ball, only scoring 54 points at Missouri State against a pretty good defense, all things considered. Getting Blair back into a rhythm, getting Savannah back into a rhythm from deep. Elena still scoring 20 points per game is very promising. So how are they able to just bounce back? How can they bounce back too from the long drive or flight that is, and getting set up quickly in Miami and getting ready for that next Conference USA game? So there certainly is a lot to watch for. Again, getting back to that home swing next week. Look forward to that one. When we get back, we are going to be talking about a lot more men's basketball. Of course, I already previewed a little bit of that spring softball doubleheader today, and then baseball starts next week, so you don't want to miss it. Make sure you stay tuned in. You're listening to the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym in Tennessee.
Whether you need general vehicle upkeep and maintenance or a complete vehicle overhaul, Hall's Auto Care is here for you. We're locally owned and operated by Greg Hall and have been in business since 2014. You'll get excellent service and trustworthy advice with Hall's Auto Care. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. We're ready to help get you safely on the road. Hall's Auto Care, 907 Ridgely Road, just off Broad Street behind Chili's. Online at hallsautocare.net. Hall's Auto Care.
At State Farm, when home and auto work as a team, you score and save money. I'm State Farm agent Andy Wama. Give me a call at 615-890-0850 and let's work together to win big by saving money on home and auto. With the service you get from State Farm, you might think our car insurance costs more. I'm State Farm agent Andy Wama. Give me a call at 615-890-0850 and let me show you with discounts up to 40%. You may find it even costs less.
Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home has served Murfreesboro families with compassion and care since 1880. As a family-owned funeral home, we're committed to honoring every life with dignity through traditional services, cremation options, and pre-planning that gives you peace of mind. For over 140 years, we've been here when it matters most. Visit JenningsandAyers.com. Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home, honoring life and comforting families since 1880.
Lace up your best kicks for a night of impact benefiting First Shot. Join us for the annual Sneaker Ball presented by Venture Express. Spend Sunday, April 26th with NFL Hall of Famer and Super Bowl MVP Marcus Allen. The event kicks off at 6 with a VIP meet and greet at 5. Reserve your table today. Call Coach Andy Herzer at 615-631-5312. We'll see you at the Sneaker Ball benefiting First Shot on April 26th.
It's a Slick Pig Barbecue. Spicy wings and Brunswick stew. Everything made fresh for you at the Slick Pig Barbecue. There's lean smoked turkey and chicken too. Ribs so tender don't need to chew. Well, come on, folks, I'm telling you, it's a Slick Pig Barbecue. In 1920 East Main, you're gonna love the pig.
The Slick Pig Barbecue, a Murfreesboro tradition.
You're listening to the flagship station for Blue Raiders sports.
On 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Middle Tennessee.
Play up and score.
Middle Tennessee football, basketball, and baseball. Yeah, we got them.
You're listening to the flagship station for Blue Raider Athletics. I'm Chip Walters. Hear the games here on News Radio WGNS.
Middle Tennessee wins.
Raiders win the championship.
Your source for the Big Blue and the Borough. News Radio WGNS.
Good afternoon. Interstate traffic a little bit heavier than it was 15-20 minutes ago. Over here on 24, trying to get past Shelby. Watch for a lot of radar pushing out through the Mount Juliet area into parts of Wilson County as traffic still cranking up pretty good up through Madison right now with a steady to heavy flow of traffic. Northbound 65 here at OHB. Stein Dental Care in Nashville is who I use, and so should you. If you're looking for a new dentist this year, these are your guys. Google Stein Dental Care Nashville. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
This is the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, 100.5 Smyrna, WGNSradio.com, and the Blue Raider Podcast YouTube channel. Now, back to your host, Jake Bolden.
Welcome back to the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Men's basketball losing streak extends to 4 straight with a midweek loss on Wednesday to FIU. But the good news is they're only 2.5 games out of second place with a 4-game road trip beginning in Dover tomorrow afternoon. Once again, thanks for tuning in. If you're not already following the Blue Raider Podcast on our social media at Blue Raider Pod on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, where our episode today is being live streamed, make sure you do so. And if you want to call in to our final segment today, our phone numbers and lines are open at 615-893-1450, and our producer here will field your phone calls. A loss at home on Wednesday. Really, you've lost 3 straight going into that matchup against FIU, who was arguably, or is arguably, the lowest on the totem pole as far as the teams that you faced in this swing, and you lost 88-84 in overtime. There's a lot to really dissect in this game. The glaring one to me, and I hate to make or sound like I'm making excuses for this game, the officiating in the final seconds of the game quite literally blew the game for the Blue Raiders, and we've seen that for the second time this season. And we know and if you don't remember, down in Ruston, again, no excuses for the result of that game. You blew a 20-point first-half lead in that game, but in the final seconds, you get tackled at half court, essentially, and there's no foul call. I don't necessarily fault that there's no foul call there, but because it's the end of the game. I mean, it's a last-second heave. There's probably a little bit of acting that takes place, and so you don't make a call. I think you can swallow that pill in Ruston. You're probably more upset about blowing a 20-point lead. But here at home, the exact same situation happens. Unfortunately, again, you miss a free throw that would put the game away, but FIU pulls the rebound down with, I think it's 5 seconds left. They quickly get down the floor, and they throw up a deep three-pointer just barely over the half-court line, and the official calls a foul with 0.2 seconds. So essentially the game is over on the final shot. And I would say luckily for MTSU, he didn't make all 3 free throws, but he made enough to send it to overtime. And the thing that's frustrating is if you watch the replay back, is he in his landing zone? Maybe you could make that argument, but there's certainly not enough contact that would warrant a whistle with 0.2 of a second remaining on the clock. So once again, MTSU gets screwed on a final call at the buzzer and puts it to overtime, and you lose it in overtime. But how do you get there? I don't want to spend too much time blaming officiating. It's bad. I mean, and the whole reason Conference USA is doing the weird scheduling is so they can have games on Wednesday, which would get you an improved officiating crew. And I guess by definition or by Ken Palm's ref ratings, you had better officiating against Liberty and you had better officiating against FIU. You had two officials there that are of Sweet 16 caliber and, in my opinion, blew the end of that game. And so you're that's stacked against you. But I think a lot of us are still not necessarily happy with the results on the court because you can blame the officiating for one play, but you still had to play the other 39 minutes and 59 seconds. So what went wrong there? In this game in particular, you let Corey Stevenson score 34 points. He's obviously a mismatch for a lot of people. Very physical guard, if that's what you want to call him. Can score it at all three levels, and we certainly saw that. We just didn't have anyone that was, the words that were used in the post-game press conference was physical enough. MJ Whitlock, God bless the junior college transfer, getting thrown into that situation where he has to guard one of the conference's top scorers, is trying to be as physical as he possibly can. There's situations where we switch ball screens and Loof is on him at the top, and you still just give him enough space, even with the size advantage that Loof or even Luka might have on him. He has a great shot. You have to defend him everywhere. And sometimes, again, I'm not a coach. I don't make these decisions, but sometimes it feels like you should hedge those and force someone else to score, or if you're going to switch, guard him at every inch. And so it felt like at times he slipped away from us, particularly there in overtime, and the game just got away from you. I believe the deficit was 7 with going into the under 8-minute timeout. They trim it into it. Again, they have a 2-point lead with free throws at the 5-second mark, thinking you've won the game, and you miss the free throw, and now we all know what happens. Just failure to put things away late at the free throw line, that's not what loses you the games. Certainly, we go look back at Western Kentucky, you probably think free throws did lose you that game, and there were quite a few free throws missed in that game, but the big takeaways from this losing stretch, because I know that this is what everyone really wants to talk about, and why? How did we get here? Why is this team losing after starting so well in Conference USA play? How have they lost 4 games in a row? How are we losing to FIU at home? How are we losing at home? That's an even better question. They don't have the offensive firepower. I mean, this team set the program record for three-pointers not once but twice this season in a long history of MTSU basketball. They've set that record twice in 1 year. But they don't have that offensive firepower. We said earlier in the year, the value in this roster was the depth. Well, now that we've gotten down to crunch time, we don't see guys, if you're not physical, you're not staying on the floor. Sean Smith, as much as I enjoy his play, he's not aggressive enough on the defensive end. We saw him get pushed around against Western Kentucky. It's kind of the same situation with FIU, and so Ja Carter is going to get a lot more minutes. We haven't seen his finishing capabilities near the rim as we've gotten deeper into Conference USA play. Obviously, I'm not saying that Ja needs to score more to help this team out, but certainly having that point guard presence that can score is going to help with spacing on the floor. Coach McDevitt talked about how this team isn't necessarily capitalizing on the pace that they can play at. When you play teams that can rebound the ball well and push the pace, getting out, and when teams struggle in the half-court offense, getting those rebounds and pushing the pace is what's going to help with again, scoring capabilities, because if you can get into odd man advantages, it pretty much suits you well, and this team is quick enough that they should be able to do that. Unfortunately, when we get into these fast break opportunities and get fouled, we get sent to the free throw line, and so that obviously hasn't played to our favor. They did a lot better Wednesday night, but that's neither here nor there. A lot of it, in my opinion, comes down to this team's toughness. I hate to question kids' toughness. At the end of the day, these are still kids, but are they pushing? Do they understand what's at stake? I'm not going to test their heart. It just feels like the toughness isn't there. FIU was, in my opinion, the more physical team. Western Kentucky was by far the more physical team. It feels like as though this team is skilled at what they do. I'm afraid of how physical they are, and that goes from Chris Loof. That goes from, as I said, Ja Carter, Sean Smith, Kamari Lands, even MJ Whitlock. I mean, we need physical players, and that's and we'll get more into MJ Whitlock here later. But I hate to put him on with guarding Corey Stevenson a lot and him scoring 34 points. Obviously, MJ didn't guard him for the full 45 minutes, but MJ has a lot of growing up to do if this is the role that he's going to be filling. I mean, he's filling that Trey Green role of going to be the primary defender on the other team's best ball handler / scorer. So he's got to grow up a lot, and that's a lot to ask of the young man. But he grew up a lot on the offensive end on Wednesday. 7 3-pointers made, obviously blows his career high out of the water, which is previously 6 with 25. I can't help but draw conclusions to 2024 season, and I bring MJ into this because in the 2024 season, if you can remember back with me, Blue Raider fans, a lot of injuries early on in that season that really derailed Cam Weston's ACL, Josh Ogundele's injury early against UAB, just completely wiped that roster, and everyone had to kind of relearn their roles. Well, eventually they relearned their roles and finished down that stretch a lot stronger, ended up going into the Conference USA tournament and upset the 1 seed Louisiana Tech. That team showed a lot of promise late because they kind of figured out their roles. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen this year. I would love to say that they're going to go on a 4-game road stretch and figure out their roles. And I don't think that that's what they're doing right now, but what I'm trying to say is there is an opportunity for this team to get right. And if it's on this road swing, which has not necessarily been favorable to teams in the Conference USA, home teams have to prevail. But is this team good enough on the defensive end, which they have shown that they are good enough on the defensive end, but that always travels. The offense has got to figure themselves out, and they've got a lot of learning, and that takes guys like MJ stepping up, taking over that Justin Porter role. Because I love that comparison, and I know I was very critical of MJ going into this season, but I think he could fill Justin Porter's style role. Obviously, he has the 3-point prowess that JP had. He's longer, more athletic, which is a lot to say for a guy like Justin Porter, but we saw MJ put his head on the rim for a rebound, the only one he had Wednesday night, but he can be physical. He's obviously learning his way as a 3-guard. That's something that, talking with Coach McDevitt, a guy that had to learn the playbook a lot, and that was a big transition for him from junior college to Division I basketball, is learning the playbook, but they've simplified it for him as a 3-guard, and he obviously has taken flight. And so I think what MJ could be for this team is maybe just a shot in the arm. Hey, no one's spot here is safe. You've got to work to earn it, and he's earned it on the defensive end, and obviously it's paying off dividends on the offensive end. And if we had more guys that kind of had that tenacity that MJ has shown in these last couple of ball games, this team can get somewhere down this stretch. And so looking at this 4-game road swing, a lot to ask. Delaware is going to be the easiest, quote unquote, on this road trip. They are in Dover at 12 p.m. noon on ESPN Plus tomorrow. They just got done giving Liberty their toughest conference game of the year, 75-69 home loss to Liberty. They were up at halftime in that game. This team has been hindered by injuries all season long, and they are a team that has certainly figured it out. They've had 4 single-digit losses in Conference USA this year, so they're right on the brink. I don't want to say they're as good as Sam Houston was last year. I think that Delaware is the worst team in Conference USA, but the margins are thin. You can't afford to make mistakes, and you're going to have an opportunity to really prove how good your defense is, how well that defense travels against them, because they're the worst offense in Conference USA. They play with one of the slowest paces in college basketball, and they're one of the bottom 5 in college basketball in offensive rebounding percentages. So they are going to want to shoot the 3 ball a lot, which obviously hinders their ability to offensive rebound. So a lot of one-and-done possessions. They will live and die by the 3 when you're talking about the games that they've had the single digits. They're averaging over 9 made threes in those games. So if you can defend the 3-point line well, force them to score inside, obviously win the rebounding battle as you should against a team that doesn't rebound the ball particularly well. They're very small in the front court. So do all those intangible things really well, and I think you're the better team at Delaware. Even though your offense has been I'm going to say below average these last couple games, let's put it nicely, compared to where they've been earlier in the year. Ever since that first half at Louisiana Tech, the offense has just faltered completely. But if you can, this is a game where I think if your defense is going to lead to offense, it's going to start out there in Dover. So players to watch for tomorrow's game, they got a quartet of scoring threats, especially at the guard position, and Christian Bliss, a guy that spent 2 years at Virginia just hiding away, but he averages over 15 points per game and 6 assists per game, nearly a double assist turnover. And then Justin Fernandez, almost 15 points per game. He's their big moments kind of guy who, if you need a bucket, they're going to turn to Justin Fernandez. And then down in the front court, they've got Tyler Hauser at 6'9", 13 points per game, and then 6'8" Emery Mason, who is 11.5 points per game, and he also leads the team in rebounding with 7 rebounds. And he in particular highlighted because he had 5 made three-pointers against Liberty on Wednesday night. This team, again, is not – they want to shoot the three, and of those four guys that I named, Bliss, Fernandez, and Hauser, they are the three-point threats. Mason is not the three-point threat of those 4, but he showed on Wednesday night that he is definitely very capable. So this team, all of them, can shoot the three. It's really going to stretch your defense out. Obviously, it's going to challenge you to rebound when you're spaced like that. So win that rebounding battle and just do all the little things right. And that's all that it's taken for this team to win in the past, and that's all it's going to take for them to win at Delaware. If you get that win under your belt, you're certainly going to feel a lot better about the remaining 3 road games. You got Western thrown in there. You've got Sam Houston, who looks like the second best team in Conference USA behind Liberty. I think Sam Houston's one of the scariest. They're young, and they don't particularly play. You know, they're like Liberty light or Liberty younger, if you will, because they're very, very young. They've won a lot of these games without their leading scorer, Isaiah Manning. So that game in particular, you're going to learn how much this team is, how much Sam Houston's changed over the last month since you've played them. But get out of break the streak. Get it done in Dover, and you certainly feel a lot better about it. So as we wrap up the show, though, I want to get into softball. They had their doubleheader starting. They're out in Troy, Alabama this week. They lost both of their games to Game 1 to North Alabama 5-1. Got run ruled in Game 2 to host Troy 11-3. 4 unearned runs allowed on 4 errors. Definitely, you don't want to come out Game 1 against North Alabama, good North Alabama team, and lose 5-1, giving up that many unearned runs. But Mary Martinez and she got the starting Game 1, but only allowing 1 earned run over 6 innings. That's a good sign coming out the gates. You just got to play better defense behind her. And then freshman Braylon Hall in relief got 3 strikeouts. So that's good to see. The pitching was definitely an area that you were concerned about with Layla Amon moving on to Mississippi State via the transfer portal. But a lot of returning production, but we see new faces this year in the starting rotation. Just, again, in the first day, Maddie Pint, the freshman, out in right field. Lily Bethune is the designated player. Lucy McDonald at second base. And then Adeze Nobo, the Smyrna High School alum, she's also starting at third base and batting in the 9-hole spot. So 4 freshmen starting Game 1. You also have Lainey Jones, who's a senior, getting some starts there in the outfield. We're missing Macy Harder and Addie Edgman. I don't know. I certainly will be able to report a lot more on that moving forward to find out what's happening with them. But if you're starting Sabria Rideau out in left field, Lexi Medlock's holding down center field, and then you've got the freshman Maddie Pint out in right field. Obviously, that's a high praise for Rideau and Pint if they're able to work themselves into the starting lineup over that of Macy Harder. So I think we'll see some rotating lineups through this weekend, but not a great start to your season. But you got 3 more games over the weekend, which I know you can view some of those on ESPN Plus. And then hopefully next week, baseball starts with Bellarmine. They got a 3-game set there. We'll give you a lot more preview about baseball going into next week's home matchup because we are running out of time today. But thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Reminder to follow us on our social media at Blue Raider Pod, at X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And if you're tuned into our live stream on YouTube right now, subscribe so you don't miss another one of our weekly episodes. We don't have any live post-game press conference, obviously, with both of the teams on the road this week, but we will have them back for you when the ladies return. But we're going to be kicking it over to Brian Barrett and John Dinkins, who are covering tonight's Siegel at Oakland game. Thanks to my producer, Jackson Smith, and you are listening to the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym in Tennessee.